and this is why some people take a look at our story and it's like, yo, that's too extreme, is that purity culture was very much a thing of like, if you commit sexual sin, there is a blot on you sexually. Let's say you lose your virginity. Let's say you have sex. That every single time you have sex, you are essentially degrading yourself, and your value as a Christian person is being decreased, because now you will not have a pure, spotless gift to give your future spouse. Hey y'all, welcome to the Clan Hernandez podcast. There are literally thousands of other things you could be listening to right now, so thank you for choosing to spend your time with us. Our hope is that as you hear our conversations and stories, that we can provide some good laughs, encouragement, tips for navigating certain difficulties in life, and possibly even new perspectives on God the Father. We love y'all. Let's jump in. All right, y'all. Welcome back to Clan Hernandez. Today, we're going to be talking about a spicy little topic.
Or a lack of spice.
Lack of spice. Christian dating, baby. Christian dating. Ain't no spice.
Ain't no spice. And not in our relationship, there was none, but when we were dating, we're still dating, but you know what I mean.
Listen, the first time I went to the Brooks family's house where they were grilling burgers, I found out that they use a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, but grandma can't handle spice, so they use no pepper for grandma's burger. Spice. I was like, dang, grandma can't handle no pepper, bro. That's pretty wild for a Mexican. But
well,
hey,
she's not Mexican. Let's just clarify.
No, I'm saying wild for me.
I understand.
Me as a Mexican. And so, anywho, lack of spice. We're talking about Christian dating, kind of how we did it, and then just kind of the topic in general.
Because I feel like it's got there is a lot to dissect right now in the Christian world. A lot of people have a lot of opinions.
Oh, sure.
About Christian dating.
Yeah.
So.
Including us.
Yeah.
That's why we're here.
That's why we're here.
So we want to kind of start off with kind of like how we handle dating. We already gave kind of a background of how we met, how I bagged her, you know what I'm saying? She bagged me at the end of the day. I saw her face and I'm like, okay, whatever she wants, I'm in. Let's do it.
So cute.
And then she rejected me. You should go back season 1. Listen. But talking specifically about the dating aspect of it, what we did, because we had some pretty extreme
boundaries.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You start.
So
where were we?
We were at our Bible college.
Okay.
We started dating our second year of Bible college, right? Yes.
Yeah, but everyone who knew us, like, we met in the first semester, and people could tell that we were
like talking second semester. You know how that is, AKA dating.
First semester, we're getting to know each other, but then she shuts me down. I don't talk to her for the rest of the semester. I say I don't talk to her. We don't talk for like the whole semester.
Yeah.
Till we meet up again at the end of the semester in Houston. We're like, okay, this is the thing. So second semester rolls around.
Yeah. But we weren't like technically you're my boyfriend until
she didn't want to put a title on it.
I know.
She's like,
a mess.
Dude, we already knew we had established that this was a thing.
Yeah.
I had a thing for her. She had a thing for me. We're good. This has been established. But she didn't want to call it dating. If you didn't hear that, Brandon J. Walker just asked why.
I think I don't really know.
I know why.
What? Do you know why?
I do know why.
You think you know why?
No, I promise you I know why.
Okay, why?
It's not like, oh, I'm just, here I am. Like,
I can't remember
assuming.
that far back. I'm just going to be.
No, like, so when we started dating, when we started talking, the entire thing was we didn't necessarily want to move fast into the whole dating thing. I'm yours, you're mine kind of thing. Like we're an item, because this is one of the main reasons why we had so high boundaries, or such high boundaries, so many boundaries, was
our past.
I had just come out of high school and lived a year in New Mexico after high school, and I was just doing me. Okay. And you also kind of had, you had a regular dating life out pre-CFNI, pre-Bible school.
Yeah.
And we come in, we start, dating. We're in this like culture of like, hey, we're here to get to know the Lord. We're here to like work on our walk with with God. But we like each other. And the entire thing was, we didn't necessarily want to be a distraction to each other while, being there. And so I think one of the major reasons why specifically you didn't want to call it dating at the time, I think, is because you just wanted to take it slow. You wanted to make sure that we're getting to know each other and it not be a distraction that we were in this like official relationship.
Yeah. And I think also I saw so many people rush into relationships at Bible college.
That's Bible school.
And I was like, what are y'all doing? You've been dating for a week and you're engaged? Like, I just don't understand that. Not that would have been us, but I also was like, at that point in my life, had never been in love. And so I was like, oh no, if I love this boy, it's going to be bad. Like, well,
and here's I would say the negative aspect, because I feel like that right there, that explanation of why we didn't rush into it, I think that's fairly healthy.
Yes.
But here's where I think it got unhealthy. And I think this is an aspect to that of why we didn't call it dating initially. I think a part of it was due to a purity culture idea that says, I won't date unless I know that I'm going to marry you.
That's right, yeah.
I won't date, and I'm not even going to call it dating. I'm going to call it courting, because courting is more intentional about the marriage purpose,
I'm
the goal.
dating you to marry
you. To marry you. And let's be real, we called it courting for a little bit.
I don't think that, listen.
Nothing wrong with courting.
There's nothing in me that looks back at our relationship.
I just did a Trump thing.
And is
Shayna, nothing wrong with courting.
So I don't think that there's anything wrong with how we handled it. I think mainly because I had only really given my life to the Lord a year and a half before we met. And so for me, like, I don't think a lot of those ideals were pushed on me.
Sure.
I didn't have a youth group. We had like a tiny amount of youth, and we had like Bible studies. It wasn't like a normal youth group where you have the purity ring and you have purity. I never was a part of that. Yeah. Which I think was such a blessing for our relationship. Because I'm the kind of person that I'm very black, and everything is black and white. There's not a lot of gray.
So you a white girl. I don't know what you're talking about.
So here's the white.
I'm very black.
I said it's very black and white.
No, you said I am very black, pause, and white. Just white.
Anyone listening knows where that was going. So I think for me, it would have been pretty hard for me to break that like mindset, but I'm thankful that I didn't have it. Yeah. But it was hard because, you go to Bible college and they're very strict. Like at the Bible college we went to, it didn't matter if you were engaged to be married, you could not hold hands on campus.
First of all, to get engaged, you had to like run it by the deans.
Didn't you ask the dean?
Yeah. So as a female, you had to run it by the female deans. And then as a male, you had to run it by the male deans. And they had to approve it. They had to approve of your relationship. They had to approve that you were getting engaged, at the right, like it was a whole approval process, like you said. Which
didn't help my desire to have people approve of me. My people pleasing. I'm sure that did not help that.
Yeah, for sure. And so I know for me, I did grow up in the church. I know that you went to the church. You went to church as a little girl.
Yeah.
And then there was a season of life where
ingrained in you.
Not
at
all. No, not when you're that. Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying. Like giving backdrop about your church background. as a kid, you went to church,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot. And then kind of your teenage years, preteen years, it kind of,
My brother and I were really involved.
You traveled
in,
a ton
stuff
for sports and all that stuff. And so, you didn't get back into church until later after you got saved as a
almost an adult.
And yeah. And so I did grow up in the church like my entire life. And so, I did grow up in purity culture, which has its pros and we all know it's got its cons as well. But one of the things that I think was kind of ingrained in me when it came to a Christian girlfriend, potential wife,
Okay.
was that, like, because at the end, let's just be real, guys. Like, when I was in high school, that's not necessarily what I was looking for per se. Like, to a certain degree, I was. Like, I knew better, and so I did talk to Christian girls. But that was my problem, is I talked to Christian girls, like multiple. I wasn't living.
You were like Abraham.
I'm just out here being like Solomon, just out here being like David. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding, guys. But really. And so that was like Christian girls I'd meet at church, or just meet at like just ministry connections. But then also, like, I talked to whoever in my high school. And so, I wasn't looking for a Christian woman per se. But every time that, like, I would talk to my mom about, like, hey, like, yeah, like, I'm talking to this girl, because she would ask every so often. The first thing she would ask is, like, is she Christian? Does she love the Lord? Like, not just is she Christian, like, does she just go to church?
Amen.
Does she love the Lord?
Asking that question.
It's a phenomenal question.
That's a good
And I, as a
question.
father, will hopefully ask my daughter one day. But I don't know that I'm going to lead with that per se. I think I want to have, just talk to my daughters about, about the guy. Who is he? Let me, and on top of that, yes, does he love the Lord, right? But what I'm saying is, that was like a major. Brandon's looking at me right now, and I can't look at him. He's gonna make me laugh.
I don't know what's happening.
I mentioned my mom.
Oh,
so
that's it. Okay,
anyway,
got it.
So, well, I hope not.
Bad timing, I guess.
So anyway, I had this thing where it's like, if you are pursuing a Christian woman, like, it can't be to just like waste time. What I mean by that is, like, if I'm just gonna go date a chick from high school, like, I don't have necessarily any intentions of like being
Long
with this
term.
person long term. I just like them, and I hope they like me too. Oh, we like each other. Sweet. We're a thing now. We're dating. We're talking. We go hang out. Things happen. Whatever, right? And then it either works out for a little bit or it doesn't. You know what I mean? It typically fades out. And then you just do the process again. That's dating culture.
Yeah.
And I just knew that I couldn't do that with a church girl.
That's right. You couldn't.
I'm just like that.
You
but
couldn't with me.
It's not necessarily due to purity culture per se, but purity culture kind of helped shape my thinking of, like, how to pursue a girlfriend in the context of church and Christianity. And so I definitely wasn't looking for that in high school. So then I get to CFNI, and I'm trying to do it right. I'm trying to, like, do ministry school right, work on my walk with the Lord. And here I am falling for this girl. And I'm like, I really, really, really like this girl. She loves the Lord. I love the Lord. I should probably do this right. It's my first time. So my idea is, okay, if I'm going to date this girl, I don't want to waste her time. And I also don't want to necessarily waste my time and my emotions, because I want to be here at Bible school and like I want to get the most out of this.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily want to be distracted per se. And so I think you and I both agreed that we just weren't going to jump into dating, calling us a thing, and it just be this distraction. We were super giddy when we'd see each other. We still had all the butterflies, all the things, right? And we would spend a lot of time together, but we made sure that,
we sought the Lord a lot.
Yeah.
in that
So I want
season,
to jump into that a little bit. Go ahead.
yeah, in that season before we started dating, we really prayed about it a lot. Something that we did that I don't know if it's too extreme, but we fasted each other.
Some of y'all are going to think this is real extreme.
Weird. Okay, but it's fine. Again, I will like reiterate, I do not regret a single thing that we did. I think, yes, maybe that was a little extreme, but honestly, I'd rather be too extreme than too loose in that regard. And so in many ways, you know what I mean? So then we fasted each other. So we would spend like a week not talking to each other, not hanging out, so that we could really like hear the voice of the Lord and what he was saying in our relationship.
See, but
No.
Hear me. I'm adding to the story. I also felt like the Lord was kind of leading me to like fast you.
Okay.
Meaning like fast, hanging out with you, like every day or as much as we could. And it was just like you said, for like 1 week spurts. But the entire time she was probably just like seeking the Lord, and just the entire time we're fasting. Cause again, I felt it. She felt it. We talked about it. We agreed. We're like, oh yeah, me too. Okay, let's do it then. Let's fast from each other for a week. I'm imagining Brooke just like hearing from the Lord, don't be with this guy. He's a mess. He's got these issues, blah, blah, blah. Like, and so the issues, you got to go back and listen to season 1. And so that's what I'm thinking is happening this entire time. Yeah, I'm spending it in prayer. Yeah, I'm spending time like seeking the Lord when I would typically be hanging out with you outside of work and outside of school. But it's not like a peaceful, like calm, like, oh, I'm just hearing from the Lord right now, like trusting him. I'm like, this is going to fail. Thank you, Lord. Thanks for telling her to spend some time away from me. Now you're going to convince her that, I'm just not the right guy for her. And then I also had a roommate who somehow was kind of close to her. Not friends, like that. Yeah. Not like he was trying to get in. He had his woman, but like he was like coming at me like, if you really want to be the man of God for her, then you're gonna need to like step it up. He just he would like. There was one time in particular, I remember he came up and like he was kind of discouraging me about me not being good enough for you in that season. Because maybe like he didn't see me reading the word as much, or maybe like I'm just like, bro, I'm in the word. Trust me. Like I know that. What does Nacho say?
I know a lot of things
They think I don't know about the gospel, but I do.
Yep.
I did, right? So no, but I had my time with the Lord. I had my own personal time with the Lord, reading the word, but then I also on top of that like served in the prayer room. Just so I had the personal time, and I had the dedicated like task time to be in the prayer room and do that stuff. And so like, but he was discouraging me about it at the same time. And it was like during our fast weeks. Am I telling everyone listening to this that you should fast the person you're dating? No. We did it because we felt like the Lord was asking us to do that.
And I think also it was, for me at least, I, again, had never loved anyone. And so like this new emotion that I had never, that's not like, it's a different kind of love, because it's your spouse. It's somebody could be your spouse. And so for me, potentially. Yeah. And so for me, I was very much, I felt like the Lord was kind of setting that in place so that you didn't become like a quote unquote God in my life, like an idol in my life. And so I was thankful for it because it really put my
She's also like a major rule follower.
Yes, I am.
Loves following rules. Mm-hmm. Loves systems.
There's nothing wrong with those things. They're beautiful.
Some people think they are.
And then they marry the ones who don't. There you are. So, yeah, I think, we did that. And then once we started dating, like I had mentioned before, at our Bible college, you couldn't even hold hands on campus. You weren't supposed to be like sitting in a car alone together. it was a lot of rules. So I'm not saying they're
People
bad.
will be breaking them rules.
So, and here's the thing, like Nate and I started wheezing. Oh God. Nate and I were very strict on it. And so we had a lot of boundaries. I'm so sorry. We had a lot of boundaries set in place, to where, you know, we would hold hands, but it was, you know, we kind of, we tried to respect the rules. Like, you know, it was off campus. We didn't kiss. We didn't actually kiss until after we got engaged, which we dated for over 2 years. So that was a really long time.
Again,
that is not
nowhere
us advising.
us telling you that you shouldn't kiss when you're dating. It is very weird.
I will say that I told Nate just before this, I kind of wish we would have kissed sooner, because then I would have had more times to kiss him.
I really wish we would have kissed. Now, I'm saying all that, but I agreed to it. Like,
yeah,
and it wasn't just like she brought it up and I agreed. When I say I agreed to it, I mean,
you kind of.
I felt like the Lord was telling me to also not try to kiss her or find an opportunity to kiss her as you typically would.
Yeah.
Any guy, any girl who's like infatuated with the person that they're infatuated with, especially if you like each other, like, you think about that stuff, obviously.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with it whatsoever. It's just, I know that for me, and this is where I want to jump into this, know yourself, know your boundaries.
Yeah.
In a dating relationship. And especially if you're a believer, like, we've all messed up. We've all done things that we don't, you know, that we know better about. But, you know, if you are jumping into a relationship and you're trying to do it right, here's my encouragement to you. Find out your boundaries. Know what things make you slip up, or, like, you know, lead you to that place where you could slip up.
Yeah.
For me, it was making out.
Same, and it was same here.
And so I remember just like having the conversation with the Lord about Brooke during our fast week. And it was just like, I want you to trust me about Brooke. Don't worry about her. Trust me. But as you're in this relationship, like, make sure that you're not putting her in situations that would make her feel uncomfortable or would make her regret. Because at the school, because again, guys, she's a rule follower, and at the school, you're not allowed to kiss, you're not allowed to hold hands, you're not allowed to be alone together. Like, their dating restrictions are basically don't date.
Don't date. I mean,
be here
or get married.
Exactly.
Or get married, because then
but just
because
jump.
then you don't fall.
Basically, don't date, but get married, or don't get married. You know what I mean?
There's obviously that's not spoken, not spoken, but it is.
Go look at that syllabus, girl.
Yeah, there
basically
is no really
says
other
that.
Option, you know.
And so, and all my past CFNIers are, you know, just people who've done ministry schools. I'm sure it's the same. And so I just remember feeling like the Lord was saying, hey, you know your boundaries, dude. You know that typically when you're in a situation where you and a girl are making out, like, it typically leads to other things. And, like, I just didn't want to open that up while I was there.
Yeah.
For myself, because again, I did make the decision mentally that I was just like, you know what, I want to be here and I want to do it right. And I don't want to be distracted. And I remember telling you guys this in one of the past episodes that a friend of mine came to CFNI with me. His name's TJ. And I remember asking TJ before we left to move to Dallas. I was like, bro, you got to really help me when I get to CFNI. Like, you know that I, you know, like to talk to girls. It's a weakness of mine. I need you to help me stay focused. And he's like, all right, bro, I got you.
Yeah.
You know, and so along with that was just knowing what my boundaries are. Like,
well, I think also boundaries honor both people.
Yeah.
It's not just for you. Boundaries were also because you wanted to honor me.
100%.
And I think that a lot of people, yes, those may seem extreme, but I think to a lot of people, it also showed them how much we respected each other.
Right.
And, you know, I think as we've been talking, kind of one of the questions that keeps popping in my head is just like, what do you feel like the Lord is asking of you? Because maybe, maybe for you, it's not as extreme as it was for us, but the Lord is requiring boundaries for everyone who's in a dating relationship.
Right. Well, the Lord requires holiness.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'll play that Christian card right now. Like, he asks us to be holy as my Father in heaven is holy. Like, that's the standard. Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, obviously I'm not going to be perfect. He's not asking me to be perfect. Even though holiness is perfection, like, that's the standard, but he knows that I'm not going to be perfect.
Yeah.
But he's setting a standard for me. And I have to figure out a way as a Christian, how can I bring that holiness standard into this relationship, in the sense that, like, not perfection. We're humans.
Yeah.
And he knows this, but he still sets a very high standard, a standard that I can't reach. Mm-hmm. But I have to ask myself, okay, in what ways can I rely on him to help me in this relationship? I want to show, this was the mentality, but this is my mentality behind why we didn't kiss, or why we dated for so long. Why we waited a while to call it dating until, like, we put like a, hey, we're dating, was that I wanted to show her how valuable she was to me. Just like she was saying earlier, like, that was a thing we discussed a lot. Like, I wanted her to know, like, hey, I value you so much that, like, I'm going to submit myself to this thing, CF&I, and their high standards that aren't reasonable for a typical school, right, of college age students, but they are reasonable, I guess, for a Bible school or ministry school where you submit yourself to. You asked to be there, right, if you're a student there, and so I wanted to show her what she was worth to me, and for me, she was worth not kissing, and it's not about the kissing. It was about what that leads us to. Yeah.
And I think that this is an important route to get to, because I think a lot of times, especially nowadays, people are so, I'm not saying purity culture was right. I wasn't raised in it. I don't know. But I think a lot of times, purity culture was a lot about, what you cannot do and what you should not do, rather than, like, I want to honor the Lord, and what does that look like? And then maybe it looks like some of the expectations that they set, but ultimately it doesn't matter. Like, I'm not here to please my youth pastor, or I'm not here to please my parents. I'm here to please the Lord. Mm-hmm. What standard does that look like?
Right.
Does that look like, what we did? Maybe not to some, and that's okay. If you are honoring the Lord, that is all that matters at the end of the day.
Right.
You don't look at someone else and say, well, they're not doing that, or they are doing that, so I can do it. Mm-hmm. No, like, what is the Lord requiring of you?
Right.
Because I love him so much that I want to honor him and our relationship. And I want our relationship to look like Jesus.
Right, for sure.
So how can I make that happen?
100%. I think that's the goal, right? The goal is that in a dating relationship, in a marriage, a Christian relationship, that I want to look like Jesus to this person.
Yeah.
And not just, like, look the part, but actually, like, asking the Lord to like, reveal himself to you in your life, allowing yourself, or submitting yourself to that process of, like, becoming Christ-like. That's what we're called to be. Mm-hmm. We're called to be, as believers, as Christ-like as we can. And so it's like, how can I be Christ-like in this walk? How can I show her how much Christ loves her? And I know that can come off really cheesy, really corny. Like, I get that. But hey, you're a believer, dude. If that's corny to you, ask yourself why that's corny to you. Because it shouldn't be corny to try to be Christ-like, especially to the person that you're, like, infatuated with, the person that you really like, the person that you're hoping to marry one day or whatever, right? And I know I deal with a lot of just the, like, friends and the opinions of, like, it's like, oh, a lot of Christian stuff is laughable, but it's like, at the end of the day, dude, I'm called to look like Jesus. And in like what the Lord describes a marriage as is a representation of how Christ loves his church.
Yeah.
That's what your relationship should look like. Your marriage should look like, is how Christ loves his church.
Yeah.
And Christ isn't looking to take advantage of his church.
That's a good word.
And so I know that when I was at school, I wanted to show Brooke that I wasn't trying to take advantage of her. I wasn't trying to use her for a means to just kind of satisfy, sexual desires, And so, and purity culture would have taught us that if this is what it indirectly taught, was that if I stumbled, it's because you had fault in that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as the woman.
As a woman, or vice versa.
Yep.
Right? But mainly the message was
the
woman causing men to stumble. So women be
this,
cover up and like, what's the word? I'm drawing a blank.
Modest.
Yeah, being modest.
Yeah.
And it's like, so that's what it would have taught us, right? It would have communicated that, that you had some fault in us failing.
Yeah.
And I actually know people at the school who use that. Oh, dude, like, we messed up, bro.
That was her.
She just like, she was wearing the shirt, or she was, wearing the shorts, or what. It's
Who
like,
is it? I'm going to go find it. I'm just kidding.
Right now. Tell her name.
No.
And so, and that's just some of the negative aspects of how purity culture.
Yeah. And I would say, like, if you're feeling shame is never from Jesus.
Right. But on the adverse side of it, because purity culture is a very, it's not just one thing. Another part of purity culture, and this is why some people take a look at our story and it's like, yo, that's too extreme, is that purity culture was very much a thing of like, if you commit sexual sin, there is a blot on you sexually. Let's say you lose your virginity. Let's say you have sex. That every single time you have sex, you are essentially degrading yourself, and your value as a Christian person is being decreased, because now you will not have a pure, spotless gift to give your future spouse. And that every time you mess up, it is devaluing you. And that's what you would hear in many of the youth platforms growing up.
That makes me sad hearing it. Again, I didn't really grow up with this.
Yeah. Real quick, the worst one that I ever heard, and I've heard this in many youth circles, it was described, there was always like a soda illustration. The worst one was an apple representation, that every single time that you commit some kind of sexual sin, it's just another bite of the apple. If you make out with your boyfriend, make out with your girlfriend, a little nibble off the apple. If you have sex, it's a big old chunk off the apple. And every new person that you have sex with, or do any kind of sexual thing with, as little as kissing, as much as sex, it's just another bite off the apple. And when you get married, this is the apple you present to your spouse.
What about redemption? What about that?
Yeah.
That's what I want to know.
Right.
I don't know. It's just, I think of it as a mom, and if my daughter heard that, my heart would break for her.
Yeah.
I do not, like, I feel like they have I'm not saying it's wrong. Like, I understand the idea that they're getting at, but that just completely rips away redemption. Completely. And Jesus died for us to have redemption, for us to be able to encounter, yes, maybe I sin. We all sin and fall short of the glory 100%. Of God. So whether I just made out with you, or you had sex 100 times and you were addicted to sex, then if we both encountered Jesus, we're both redeemed.
Right. Well, even if that stuff happens in faith as a believer, like imagine that all these kids that are listening to this stuff are in the church.
Yeah.
Whether they're actually saved or not is not the question. Let's just assume that these are people who have given their life to Jesus at some point or another. They're in the church. Mm-hmm. This is the message being given to Christian teenagers, Christian.
And it's like you already have
adults.
Jesus, and now you're
You
in
already
trouble.
have Jesus. His blood has already washed you.
Yeah.
But every single time that you sin, it's like, specifically sexually, it's different. Scripture does tell us that sexual sin is a different kind of sin because that you're sinning against your own body. But that's not affecting the blood of Jesus.
Yeah.
The blood of Jesus
covers.
Well,
and
it's not an excuse. Not saying it's an excuse.
There's a difference between feeling shame and feeling condemnation. You should feel some
conviction.
Sorry, I said condemnation. Whoa.
Same thing. Shame and condemnation.
What kind of Christian am I?
Conviction.
You should feel convicted, because the Lord does want you. He the reason that He requires these things of us is because He loves us.
Right.
And He wants the best for us. And I will say, us not doing anything made our relationship very uncomplicated.
Oh, yeah.
There was a lot less that we had to deal with because we didn't move into a lot of those things. And so I see now, okay, the Lord set up these requirements for us. I remember actually the first time that you and I, we didn't have sex before marriage, but once we got married, we had sex. What's she about to
say? The first time we did what?
The first time we had sex, we were actually, I want to say it was one of the first few days of our marriage. We were on our cruise already. And
the first time was that night, baby girl. What you talking about?
I'm sorry, I got mixed up with my words.
We did not wait.
We didn't wait. Okay.
After the wedding.
So
sorry, Brooke's family.
That's fine. Everyone knows. We have 2 kids. Happened twice. So
just 2 times.
It had been a few days of, the freedom that is allotted in marriage. And I remember sitting on the bed, Nate was showering, and I just remember being like, now I get the soul ties that I felt so connected to you, and I was not clingy until that happened.
That's so funny.
You know that about me. I wasn't I was so fine by myself. I didn't need to know anything about you. You would be gone all day long. I wouldn't hear from you. We would barely text. I didn't need to know.
Right.
We started doing that, and I was like, where are you? Where are you going? Are you in the bathroom? What you doing?
That's so funny.
I needed to know because it's just different. I felt such a different connection to you.
Sure. Well, it was pure.
It was pure. Yes.
And it was a righteous connection.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that's kind of what purity culture used a lot of times. They used that verbiage of soul ties, and that every bite of the apple was another soul tie.
Sorry if I brought up some triggering words.
No, you're good. That's the exact verbiage that they used. And so a lot of times it was the bite of the apple was another soul tie that you were making to someone. But it's but that's really not what was being communicated in the heart of the person receiving it.
Yeah.
A lot of times it was, especially in the female, the girls, they were receiving it more so as
your purity is on me.
Well, that the responsibility thing, that was another aspect, yes. But I'm talking about the bite of the apple thing. Was what was being communicated was soul ties. Every time you have sex with someone, it's a soul tie. It's a soul tie. And you're making all these soul ties with people. First of all, I don't know where we find that in Scripture.
That's true.
But number 2, what was being received by these people, by a lot of women or girls in this case, was that like you said earlier about you're presenting this eaten apple to the person, hey, this is what I got for you.
That's all I got.
This is how much. Yeah, that basically I'm not valuable
anymore
because I lost my virginity, or because I've had sex however many times, or because I gave myself. You know what I'm saying? And it devalues the person.
As someone who didn't deal with it, all I hear when you're saying this is, I've just always brought back to but what does the Lord say?
Right.
He doesn't say that about them.
Right, for sure.
And so if we just get that through, and if we as people who were our generation was, I guess a lot of people were hurt by purity culture. We're parents now. We don't have to teach our kids that.
Right, for sure.
I'm going to teach my girls, hey, you love Jesus with every ounce of your heart. Okay, we're going to honor him. In this home, we honor him. What does that look like for you? Once you have a boyfriend, what does it look like to honor the Lord?
Well, and this is how a guy should treat you, and this is what you should look for, and the blah, blah, blah.
And you know,
and don't be like fooled by, like teaching them not to be fooled by sweet words and, you know, good looks and all that stuff. And that's only going to go so far for a teenager, right?
Oh, trust me.
Hopefully, and all of this is going to come with prayer. And right now we're saying this is our plan. Who knows what it's going to actually be once we're there, right? But very well aware that we're not there yet, and it's different once you're dealing with it. But I did grow up with 2 teenage sisters, and who, you know, went through all of it.
Yeah.
And you know, just kind of seeing the way my parents handled it. And at the time I was at Bible school, and they'd call me every so often and just kind of ask like, hey, like, how should we deal with this? Because you know, my goal was to be in youth ministry, and so I was very much connected to youth culture, and just and so anyway, I personally have seen the, you know, tackling teenage hormones and teenage emotions and teenage all of that in a Christian home.
Yeah.
You know, so I've seen how to do it, how not to do it, how it was taught to me, how it was taught to my sisters, and so and just all the teenagers that I grew up with in youth ministry. So
yeah.
Going back to what you were saying earlier about how purity culture a lot of times like teaches the girl that if you guys fall or if he stumbles or whatever, a lot of times is due to what's communicated is that it's due to the girl, that she was being too promiscuous or she was wearing something too revealing and you caused him to stumble. And so the blame a lot of time gets put on the girl. And so obviously we know that that's not biblical. Yeah. Sure, modesty is taught in scripture, but modesty is completely situational depending on culture. What is the cultural norm for like, hey, if I'm going to be at a public pool with a bunch of kids and moms and, you know, like what's the standard here? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to, you know, if I'm a dude, like I'm not going to go wearing a Speedo.
Darn.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, if I'm out on a private beach with you on our honeymoon, Speedo? You know what I'm saying? Will I wear a Speedo? Maybe then it's culturally.
Now it's on.
You know,
everyone's heard.
You know, so it's like, and I can't speak for females when it comes to modesty per se, but the question is, okay, like modesty, you know, in one situation isn't going to be the same modesty in another situation per se, you know, but the question is, how am I honoring? Like, is what I'm wearing honoring to the people around me?
Yeah.
Not just the men, but the females, the children, who's going to be there? You know what I'm saying? Like, asking yourself that question, and then just asking the Lord, like, Lord, what do you think? Like,
yeah,
you know. But let's be real though. You're not going to ask the Lord every single time you go to the pool, like, hey, is what I'm wearing okay? You know what I'm saying? Like, you just gotta be mindful, right? Yeah. Be mindful at the end of the day. Like, is what I'm wearing practical to the situation? What do you like when it comes down to the modesty question for females? Like, especially like with like, because I remember as a teenager, we'd go to like water parks and stuff, and it was just kind of such a weird standard that, like, you know. I
think it's also different for me. You know more of my story.
Sure.
But I had some stuff happen like to me at school because I did have a bigger chest and I was a really tiny girl. And for me, it was hard to cover up. Like, let's be honest, I was skinny. I was like a size 0 and I had a bigger chest. And so like anything that I was going to wear was going to be a little more revealing because I was small. And
or just like accentuative.
Yes. Yeah. And so for me, I remember always being very self-conscious. And
even as a non-saved person?
Yeah. 100%. Because you notice when people are paying attention. And I wasn't the kind of person that wanted that attention. Like,
Sure.
I wanted someone to love me. I don't want you to just stare at my chest. You know what I mean? Like, so I think for me, once I got saved, being modest was kind of like a relief almost for me, because I was like, oh, good. Like, no one's going to stare at me.
And what did modesty look like for you in school?
For me, it was more of just like, I wasn't going to show my cleavage.
Sure.
For me, that was it.
Yeah.
Like,
but what if you're a girl who finds a lot of value, or not value, but just a lot of
I think all of
self,
this can be answered in the like same question, like, am I honoring the Lord in this? And if I feel like I'm not, like, what's the root? Like, why do I want to wear this?
Sure.
Because there are times, like, there have been times where I've dressed really nice with you when we went on our trip to Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wore things that were a little like tighter and a little like nothing scandalous, but
sure.
I wanted to look nice for my husband.
Sure.
And it was in a situation where I knew that it was okay and it wasn't inappropriate. I didn't feel.
Right.
But I think ultimately, like, you have to look at your heart. Like, why am I wanting this? Why do I want to dress this way? What is it? Because I want approval of man? Well, what does scripture say about that?
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not doing I shouldn't be doing things for the approval of man. Right. I should be doing it for the approval of the Father. Right. And for me, now that I've come pretty far in that, I could wear something a little like, you know, not saying revealing is not the right word, but a little more form-fitting and not baggy. Right. You know what I mean?
But at the end of the day, even if you decided to wear whatever you wanted to wear.
Yeah.
A 2-piece bathing suit.
Yes.
Something that would be revealing, you know, that would be considered revealing by, you know,
Christians.
It's fine.
Yes.
Like, it's not your job or your weight if another guy is lusting after you.
Because ultimately, if they're going to lust, they're going to lust. That's a heart problem that they have to fix. Right. And so I could be wearing leggings and a baggy t-shirt, and they could be lusting after me. And that's not 100%. On me.
Yeah. You are not in control over what a person thinks or what's causing them to stumble at the end of the day.
And, you know, like, you hear stories of, we're going to go there, like girls who have been molested, sexually assaulted. Sure. Like, I can remember with me, like, I can remember the exact sweatpants I was wearing. I was wearing sweatpants. That's not inviting someone to come and touch me, feel me, do anything. Sure. That's not inviting. Yeah. That's a them problem. Do you know what I mean?
100%.
That's not on me.
Yep.
And so ultimately you're right. Like, what we're wearing, like, I still take a firm stance on, like, we need to honor the Lord. Sure. But I know that there are people who are in a different, like, they feel like it's okay to wear. I remember for the longest time, I was like, I'm never wearing a bikini. And then I got a little older and I was like, it's okay. Like, if you know, like, maybe I don't personally feel comfortable. I have had 2 children. I am not wearing a bikini because I don't feel like that's honoring for anyone's eyes in this room.
Stop it.
But, like, you know, I think that that's something that's very, you need to be talking to the Lord, and you need to find the root issues here. Right. As to why you feel like you need to wear what things you're wearing.
Because I think the modesty conversation is very nuanced. Mm-hmm. And it can be offensive depending on, you know,
which side you're on. Right.
Yeah. And so more than answering the question of, well, what is modesty? What is modest? At the end of the day, there's 2 things. Well, there's for sure one thing that we all as believers need to consider. And it's what is what I'm about to do going to be a stumbling block for someone? Now, does that, like, do you always need to just be, like, concerned about other people? Like we said, at the end of the day, their sin issue is their sin issue. It's not your issue. Jesus tells someone to chop their arm off if it's causing them to sin, gouge their own eye out if it's causing them to lust. Like, that's your issue, dude.
But we're called to help.
You can, but it's on both sides. It is a like a stumbling block issue. Mm-hmm. And it's not just a modesty thing. At the end of the day, this falls into, you know, if I'm gonna have an alcoholic like beverage or something, like, is it gonna cause, like, if I'm, like, our pastor, he's asked us, like, hey, if you guys are gonna drink, make sure he's like, first of all, I prefer that you don't drink.
Yeah.
But if you are going to have a drink, make sure that you're not doing it where, church members could possibly see you. So that means a lot of restaurants in the same city. If you're going to have a drink, hey, try to do it at home. Try to do it,
Not because it would be hiding.
No.
But because
it's just a stumbling block issue.
Yeah.
It's a testimony issue. It's hey, like that believer might think that it is a sin. And so that it doesn't cause any issues or anything, like, even though that it's not a sin to drink, like, be aware of that. It's just an awareness thing. It's I have to be aware of like when it comes to even just like music. Yeah. I know with Brooke and my mom, they don't like some of the metal that I listen to. Yeah. It causes anxiety for them. My mom thinks it sounds demonic, and so she. I'm
not saying it sounds demonic.
No, she doesn't.
It is my mom, just clanging cymbals in my ear.
And I'm sure my mom would say the same thing. She's like, "Yeah, me too. It sounds just like a bunch of mess and nonsense."
It's so much
but
chaos.
I do know that whenever I first started listening to like all that stuff, she's like, "Oh, that sounds so," and it was like it caused something in her to feel uneasy, and so I just knew, okay, I'm not going to listen to metal in front of my mom. And with you, I know it causes anxiety for you. And so okay. And that's not so much a stumbling block in the sense it's going to cause you to sin, but even like that's what you got to ask yourself. It's Paul, talking with Timothy about like sacrifices, or eating meat that is given as a sacrifice to a false idol. Should we, knowing that I can thank the Lord for it in thankfulness, it's a good thing. There's nothing bad about it. You wearing a bathing suit is nothing bad about it, dude. Do you, bro?
Go for a swim with your kids.
Like go to the the water park and like do you. But it's like if I know that the person that let's say I'm eating food sacrificed to idols in front of someone who does think that's a sin, then for that person, don't do it. Yeah. Not because you, again, if you cause them to sin, like that's not the issue. It's not you causing them to sin. It's just for their sake. All right, I'm just not going to do it. You know what I mean? But like I said, at the end of the day, like you don't need to carry that weight for everything that you do, everything that you wear. At the end of the day, I think we have the freedom in Christ to just, live life. And you can't be conscious or aware at all times of like, who am I causing to stumble, or because I have a bigger bust size, or because a certain pant accentuates
different parts of me.
Parts of my, like, that's not your issue. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And I will say, like, I've never really felt too much weight of that.
Sure.
Again, I wasn't raised in that.
Because a lot of women do.
Yeah. I don't really have those thoughts running through my head. Right. It's more of a like, I want to make sure you're feeling honored. You know what I mean? But like, that's it.
Yeah, for sure. And so just to kind of bring this back around to like our dating life and whatnot, like,
sorry, that took a turn.
It did, but it was great. I think, though we did do some extreme things, the not kissing until after we got engaged. And even then some of you are like, yo, that's even crazier, because it's like, now you're engaged, you're going to get married. Like, that's for sure going to lead you down. We had already like been so used to our boundaries that even when we did kiss, like,
it wasn't going anywhere. It
wasn't going to go anywhere. Yeah. It wasn't.
Also, like, I'm a very strong-headed woman.
We would pull up to Brooke's parents' house. Number one, we weren't supposed to be in the car alone together.
We could be in the car alone together. You couldn't be parked.
That's what it was. Well, I don't know. I think that I think they were.
Who is the rule follower and who is not?
This is true. Okay.
I will go get the handbook.
But we would pull up
to
Brooke's parents' house in Arlington, and if her parents weren't home, she'd be like, "We're not going inside." I'm like, "Why? Like, we're not going to do anything. Like, God forbid if we go inside alone, we're just going to rip each other's clothes off." Like, no, like, and so I would tell her, I would kind of make fun of her about it. But she's like, no, like, I'm not going inside the house. Like, I don't want to put us in a position where that could even be a choice. And I'm like, bro, we're not going to make that choice. But for her, it was just a standard thing. It was just, this is the boundary we're going to set. This is the standard we're setting. We're not going to cross that. And so we would wait until our parents would get home, and then we'd go inside and hang out. They thought it was weird that we hadn't kissed.
No clothes were ripped off.
Exactly.
We were waiting in the car.
But I would even tell her, I'm like, babe, if we were going to do that, we could do that right here in the car. Like, I don't got to wait till we're inside a house. If I'm, you know what I'm saying? Like, but.
In broad daylight, sir. In broad daylight.
But a lot of times, like, but I would agree. I would agree with it because, like, you know, at the same time, it always came back to the question of, why are we doing this? I want to show her how much she is valuable, like how much she is worth to me, how much, like how valuable she is to me. And so that was the why behind the fast. That was the why behind how long we dated, how long we waited to kiss. It was a boundary thing, a personal boundary thing, knowing that if I go down that road, I'm going to want to do more, just me personally. And she had the same thing.
Yeah.
And so I remember we had that conversation, like, hey, kind of don't, like, if we're going to date and talk to each other and all that stuff, like, not just because it's a rule at the school, but also, like, I don't want to kiss because of my past. Yeah. And she said the same thing. I feel the same thing. And so it was an agreed upon boundary and standard. And everyone thought we were crazy. But, you know, at the end of the day, it showed her how much I cared about her, that I loved her, and how much I valued her. And to her, that was everything she needed to know, that, like, okay, this is the right guy. You know, and so I would say in when it comes down to Christian relationships, if you're single, you're looking, whatever, but you love the Lord, one of the major things that we did in our fasting time was we laid down our desire to even be married, in the sense that, like, we're just like, Lord, I know this is really, like, this is pretty extreme for a lot of people, but we like asked the Lord, like, hey, do you even, like, have this for me? Because if it's not from you, like, if I don't, like, if this relationship or even just dating in general isn't, like, if that's not what you have for me, Lord, like,
I don't want it.
I don't want it. I just want what you have for my life. And let's just be real. I think a lot of Christians aren't willing to have that conversation with the Lord, because we want what we want.
Yeah.
Like, we're human. And one of the major things that the Lord put in us is a desire for relationship. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with relationship. There's nothing wrong with desiring connection, desiring intimacy. And I'm not just talking about sex. I'm just talking about intimacy with a human on an emotional level, connection. Like, that's from the Lord. He gave that in every single one of us. We're made in his image. And so, but if I'm putting not just a person, but a desire to be married above him, then I think a lot of times that's why we find ourselves in the relational circumstances that we find ourselves in. Yeah. In relationships that we know we're not supposed to be in, or that we get in and then it's like, yo, this is a mess, right? And then they end up failing, because it's like, did I even ask the Lord about this relationship in the first place? And then before that, have I even had the conversation with the Lord about, God, is this what you have for me? Like, I want to live life after, like, I want to live my life the way that you want me to live it. That's what it means when you say, be the Lord of my life. Yeah. It's good. Asking him to change your desires. Yeah. Lead your desires. And that's what he did for us. We laid it down, and then he put it back in our lap after he saw that it was like, okay, cool. You're willing to lay that down, relationships, potential marriage. You're willing to lay that down in pursuit of me. Awesome. I'm going to honor you. And here's this amazing relationship, you know, and you're doing it right, you know? So again, when I say doing it right, I'm not saying that you need to do exactly what we did.
For us and our relationship, it's what we needed to do. Right.
Asking him, you know, kind of to guide us in that process.
Yeah, that's good.
And being willing to do it, just being willing to obey. Like, would you be willing to do that? And so.
That's what we got.
Yeah, man. That's kind of our story. That's kind of our advice. That's our journey and how we dated. Would I change anything? Ultimately, no, I wouldn't change anything, except I have told her in the past that like, I wish that like we had that first kiss during our like
beginning stages.
like the beginning stages of I'm really like, I'm really falling for this girl, and just to have that, you know, because it's just that kind of kiss, really like sweet. Y'all know, that's a very sweet thing, and we didn't get to necessarily have that, but the later, you know, when we did finally kiss, you know, we got to do special
things we didn't get to do with anyone else.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That's great.
You know, and I genuinely mean that like when we did get to, you know, share that first kiss and whatnot, like it was special because of the fact that it was like, yo, we waited for this. It was a special thing, and it was like, and we didn't have to feel the guilt of like, oh, like we're, you know, like opening certain doors or whatever, you know what I'm saying? We didn't have to worry about that. And so, anywho, we love y'all.
That's all we got.
Glad that you guys hung out with us this episode. Yo, if you're listening on Spotify, by the way, and you have any questions or future topic ideas, or like even questions for us concerning dating or whatever episode you're listening into, if you have a question, Spotify has a way for you to like ask questions in the episode. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, I think it's like down there somewhere. And so like any episodes that we ever like release that you listen to, feel free to like submit that stuff, and we can address that stuff in future episodes and whatnot. Topic ideas, like I said.
Yeah.
And so, anywho, love you guys. Thank you guys for hanging out with us today. Catch you on the next one. Clan Hernandez.